So today I'm going to go through a few compositional techniques and some ways of making your chord progressions more interesting and taking them in directions which are unexpected but still work in a lot of cases. Now, generally speaking, most people when it comes to composing songs and trying to write chord progressions will take the chords of the major scale, let's say G major, etc., all the way up, and they will use those in a certain order to try and make a song sound good. That's always going to give you a diatonic background to play with, and that can be very limiting. It can get rid of a lot of the interesting ways of introducing emotional impacts in chord changes, and also just make things slightly dull when you keep doing that over and over again on every single song. So how can you get out of that? And I want to talk to start with about a concept which is often massively overcomplicated, which a lot of people might refer to as chromatic mediants. And what this is it's to do with how the bass is moving and also how the chords are moving within your composition. Generally speaking, what happens with this is, let's say I'm on one chord, arbitrarily I'm going to pick A major here. I can go either a third up or a third down from that chord, and I can explore the different options that gives me. I'm just going to pick major or minor chords with this just to make that simple. And by a third, I mean either a major third or a minor third. So if I take this chord and I go up a minor third, that's going to change key. That's going to give you that sort of like minor to major sound, but it doesn't sound bad. And again, something that's quite commonly used in a lot of like jazz tunes and things like that is to do that kind of thing. But there's loads of other options here. You know, we could think, okay, what happens if I go up to a minor chord? So that would be going up to exactly the same thing, up a minor third. So I'm going from A to C, and then I'm going playing C minor 7 instead of C major 7. So far we've got these two options, A major to C major or A major to C minor, which are both interesting key change or borrowed chord ways of looking at things. But generally speaking, I'm just thinking of here going up a third of some kind. And what I can do is with a major third as well. Or I can go up to... Now, the minor chord there, if I played up a major third and I play C sharp minor, that is actually chord 3 of the scale. That's our diatonic option here. So that doesn't really change key at all. That's just a sensible chord to go to that actually, coincidentally, is within the key. Because going up a minor third takes you to major third takes you up to chord 3 there in the scale. So far anyway, we've got these 4 different options. Hopefully you can hear there's some interesting sounds in there, and I am literally not thinking about voice leading or anything useful here or anything like that, which can often be really important when dealing with these kind of things because of the fact that you really want to make those chords sound good together. So after you've decided a direction, you can then think about what voicings you want to use. That's a completely different story, maybe another video. But I can also do the same thing downwards. So unless I'm really hearing this in my head, the other options to explore are, well, what happens if I go a minor third down? Well, that F sharp major sounds pretty good. What about F sharp minor? Well, this is going to be chord 1 to chord 6. This actually gives us another diatonic option here. If I play that F sharp minor, sorry. The F sharp minor will be chord 6 of A major, so we actually get a diatonic option there. If I want to go down a major third, that's going to take me to F major, or F minor. Now these are, like I say, a little bit more difficult to hear because generally speaking, going down in pitch by a certain interval is harder to hear for your ear than going up in pitch by the same interval. That is just one of these things that for the vast majority of musicians is a thing. I think it's to do with how we practice and also just how a lot of modern music is constructed. So it's kind of harder to hear that as a chord change going down that major third to F major. But again, these are really interesting ways of either changing key or using borrowed chords here. So we've got now 8 different options, and I'll play them all. And there's probably a John Coltrane-esque exercise in there somewhere that you could practice, but I cannot be asked to put that together. So you get the idea. We've taken one chord and we've now got 8 different directions, of which 6 of them, if my maths is correct, are not diatonic to the scale that we picked. So 6 of those 8 do not belong to A major. That's quite interesting because it gives us a lot more extra mileage with our A major scale. But what happens, for example, if instead of just thinking, right, I'm on a chord and I'm going to go this way, I do that halfway through a chord progression. So let me play, I don't know, let's play something different. I do a chord progression in A minor. Let's say we do something like this. So just to keep this simple, I'm going to actually say that's C major. We're playing like chord 6 of C major to chord 4 of C major. So like A minor to F major 7. Now, if I then think, okay, after F major 7, I'm stuck. I don't know where I want to go, and all my diatonic options here. All that kind of stuff is sort of boring me if I start doing a lot of diatonic things with that, which I could do, but let's just say arbitrarily, I'm kind of sick of that and I want to go somewhere else interesting. We stick with F major. And now we think, okay, well, where else can I go from F major? I can either go a third up or a third down. 8 different possibilities. So let's just try and explore a few. If I go up my minor third up here, I could go to like an A flat. You could think about that as something like A flat major. And again, I could revoice that if I wanted to here. Down to A flat major on the E string. So we get this. We get something like, sounds like this. Well, that's not bad. What about if I, instead of doing that, I went up a minor third, didn't I? So if I now go up a major third, let's say to the A major, this might sound a little bit weird, but we'll give it a go. Actually works quite nicely there. So if I now try, let's say, going up to a minor chord, let's say I'm going to go up a minor third. I'm going to go to, let's make it an A flat minor 9 or something like that. So we get something like this. If I go. Very unusual sound that might take you a bit of time to adjust your ear to, but it does work. Particularly if you imagine that sort of like as an ending of something. That's how I'm hearing that in my head straight away, is, oh, that could end a tune like that in a really unexpected direction. So that's an interesting one. What about if I go up a major third and I go to, if I go to A minor, well, that doesn't really mean anything because that's just me going between 2 chords, because we started on A minor in the first place, and it turns out that if we go a major third from F, we get back to A. So that doesn't really, do anything for us. But let's do the ones downwards now. So let's say I go down a minor third. So that's going to take me from F to D. We're going to be playing a D major 7 here. So I'm going to get. And that doesn't sound too bad either. Again, these are some cool options. What happens if I go down to the same note, but I turn it into a minor chord? Well, that's our diatonic option. That will be chord 2 in this key. This is chord 2 of C major that we end up on here. So this doesn't really do anything interesting for us, but it does, just make things work still. It just works diatonically. So what about the other options? Down a major third. So from F down a major third would take us to D flat. And we're now going to do this. I really like this one. And that's pretty cool. What happens if I do a minor chord here? This might be quite hard to hear. I'm already thinking it's going to sound a bit weird. So both the minor chords downwards here, like both A flat and D flat, sort of had a really weird place they were taking us, and that is usable. It just might need some voice leading sophistication in there to make those chords not as much of a jump downwards. That jump down a major third is kind of hard to hear, so that's why you need to voice lead things in a bit of a better way. But hopefully that's just given you a few ideas when it comes to how to create chord changes that are not just chord 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I can do this from anywhere in that scale. So anytime I get to a chord and I get stuck and I think, I don't really know what I want to do here, I can start thinking about chromatic mediants and how I can use chromatic mediants to get between things. And there's 8 different possibilities there, and you can brute force this. That's the nice thing about it, because it's a really simple concept. If I just say, right, I'm going to just try a minor third up, try a minor third down, try a major third up, try a major third down, with both minor and major chords in all of those different places, what ends up happening is eventually you might find what you're looking for as something that's a bit more interesting than just going to the next diatonic chord. So really nice way of brute forcing compositions when you get stuck and you can't get anywhere further with it because you're not able to hear the next sound, and so something to really get used to. Now, on a slightly more complicated topic, you can do this with a load of inverted shapes as well, and this is something that I like to sort of play about with. Let's say, like, loosely we have, instead of just saying, oh, it's minor or major, let's say we play about with shapes like this, which technically this would be sort of like A major 9 over the 3rd, D flat. But I can start thinking about, well, if I take a few sort of inverted shapes with 9s and 11s in them, which, you know, there's a Ted Green book on this, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend, where he says, you know, some of the best sounding chords all have sort of like either the 11th in them or the 9th in them, or, you know, some of these upper extensions always give you like a really nice flavor to things. So I can do things like, well, let's take this and then move it down a minor third. So what happens if if I change the chord and I go, again, I'm just thinking about the bass note moving down a minor third here. About up a major third to somewhere like this. And sometimes what I like to do is just try and move around the neck doing this. So just try and go up and down major in thirds and try and pick different chord shapes. And it sounds something like this. Sometimes put a semitone shift in there as well, actually, just before I start doing this, because otherwise you just end up going back and forth endlessly. So. You can get some really cool stuff. All I'm doing there for that chord progression, which sounds really quite complicated, is I'm thinking about moving chord voicings in thirds, and then every other one I was just shifting either up or down a semitone. And suddenly you've got something that's really quite interesting, and it goes through a hell of a lot of keys as well. It can be a really sort of a bit of a challenge to write something over. But it gives you an idea of what you can do with this concept, and if you get really quick at this and you start hearing all these options, it just expands your compositional palette far more than any other compositional technique I know does. So really work on this one if you want to get some of these more interesting chords under your fingers and just generally be able to compose with them. I hope this has been a useful video, and any questions, drop them in the comments.